a podcast for creatives. On this week's episode of Take Aim Podcast, we are joined by PJ Kennedy, a Northern California metal artist that has some pretty sweet art and advice to share for all creatives out there actively pursuing a life of creativity. Please like and subscribe to catch new episodes each week on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Audible. I hope you enjoy this next episode of Take Aim Podcast. Cool. Well, it's so cool to finally meet you.
Oh, it is as well.
First of all, thank you for coming on the podcast and for, being a guest. And me and my husband, like I told you, like we're big fans of your work. And we always, anytime you post something new, I'm like, oh, babe, look at this one. Like, it's so cool. So how long have you been doing this?
I have been doing this for really about almost 5 years. I've been kind of dabbling in it the first year, and then about 4 years for real.
So how did you get into working with metal? Like, and like how, like what, like when did it like spark that thing and you were just like, oh, like I can do this. Like, I'm just going to do it.
Well, so like I did metal shop in high school.
Okay.
And before that, my stepdad was always kind of a fixer and a doer. And so, I'd seen him do some welding and some mechanical work and took apart things and put them back together. And so I'd kind of seen him do things, and that kind of sparked interest. Metal shop, I took all 4 years in high school, so that really set the hook with like I like playing with metal.
Yeah.
And doing all that kind of stuff was fun, and it taught me the basics of a very broad spectrum. And then out of high school, had a couple of jobs. Then I got into the fencing industry, and you do a lot of welding and welding up the iron fence and that kind of stuff. And that's where it became a job and something I did every day at a very basic level. I'm not a fancy welder, as someone would say.
Yeah.
In the welding community, people laugh at me with my tools and what I do and how I do it. But that's not what I'm trying to prove or accomplish, right? As long as what I make doesn't fall apart, I'm good to go.
Exactly. Exactly. We all have our own ways of doing things, right?
Right. Yeah. So, so there's that line you always have to kind of walk of just where's your niche market, right? And I feel like every artist probably has that of, who's your audience? What are you trying to, sell them, and what do they want you to sell them, right?
Yeah.
If that's what you're trying to do. So I think that was kind of hard for me to figure out at first once I started doing this, but that's kind of how I got the groundwork of what I do and how I do it. Then about 5 or 6 years ago, I wanted to make a fire pit table. Where it was just like a table you'd sit around and you see them and you get them at Costco, and it's a little propane table.
Yeah.
But I wanted mine to be a little bit bigger and made out of wood. I had this little fire pit where the stand was kind of janky, but the fire pit itself was pretty solid. And so I decided I was going to make this little table. And so I still had all the stuff to do a fence, even though I wasn't building them anymore. I had all the tools to do it on the side for friends and family and that kind of stuff. And I put this thing together and kind of made it. And then as I was doing that, I had been on Instagram and I had seen, a little horseshoe sculpture or something like that. So I made something else. I had the tools all out, right? And it was just whatever it was. And that was kind of fun, let's do another one.
Yeah.
And so I saw another sculpture or whatever it was. And then I finally had seen something on Pinterest, because then you're into it, right? Like, oh, I make things, and the table turned out good, and the little horseshoe thing or whatever it was, I made probably a flower, right, for someone I was dating or whatever it was. Oh, that turned out pretty good, and I made my mom a flower. Then just kind of stepped up, and the next thing, and then I'm gonna challenge myself. Well, there's this really popular horseshoe guy sitting down warming his hands. You see it on Pinterest and you see it on Facebook, and little tea kettle holder made out of horseshoes. Looks like a cowboy sitting around a campfire. And so I made it, and that was neat. So then I'd seen another one, so I made that one, but I had modified the second one and made it my own. And that was where I felt like, oh, that's where I created a unique piece of art, you would say, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my first like artistic thing I've done, and it was my own, and never, no one has ever done it. Yeah, the basic idea was somebody else's, but I did some things and it looked completely different, right? And then somebody bought that, and then they ordered like five more as like Christmas presents or whatever it was, and I'm like,
So cool.
well, that's pretty cool, right? And that was a, kind of a thing. And then from there, just kind of stepped on. I was on social media, right? I get a lot of, I guess, not inspiration, but um, competitiveness nowadays. Before it was, like an inspiration or like, oh, that's a neat idea, right? I want to try something like that. And so I saw like a handgun, and there was a gear that I had that looked like part of a handgun. And I'm not a gun guy per se. Like I own some guns, and like guns are okay. And
Yeah.
whatever that is, I'm not having that conversation. But another time, another place. But at the same time, it was neat to make, and it had spark plugs, and it was this revolver. It kind of reminded me of the Dirty Harry thing. You know what I mean? And that was really fun to make. And that was where I really started liking doing that kind of more aggressive thing where you know the kind of meaner looking it was, or kind of scary it was, but then at the same time it's just a piece of junk. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's a little edgy at the same time, you know what I mean? And there's other guys doing them. There's, I wasn't the first, and I'm not going to be the last, and I'm not the best, but I do make some really neat ones, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like that's a competitive kind of thing, which is really funny that there's so many people doing it, and some people get a little offended on what you do. Have you ever experienced something like that where someone feels like you've ever ripped off their art, right, or infringed on their artistic copyright or whatever you want to say?
I feel like the secret is we all do that, don't we? As artists, we get inspired by each other, and then we kinda pick a couple different things and we kinda make stuff our own. So none of the ideas that we honestly come up with are completely original ideas. They're probably like a couple different original ideas put together to make a new original idea, right?
I that's exactly how I look at it and agree, because it's not like that's how we all got into it,
Yeah,
right? Isn't that why we all got into it? All of a sudden you felt inspired to create because somebody else created,
exactly.
right? And I still do that. I make things because I saw someone else make them, and man, it would be cool to put my own twist on that,
Yep.
right? um but not everybody looks at it that way, I guess you would say. Some people feel as though it's a infringement, or like, oh, you're trying to steal a customer or a sale or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I get it. I can understand that thought, but I don't agree with it, right? Some one of the cool things I had experienced, being an artist, and I still, man, it's hard for me to call myself an artist, so I put the quotes on it still. But uh on Instagram, I kind of did this hashtag thing with one of the guys that I look up to. His name's Bucket of Bolts, and we picked a topic or a thing, a character, or whatever you would call it, and we challenged all the other guys in their scrap metal free time to make it, and then hashtag it, and so you could all see it. And we did ducks and cats and um, just all sorts of neat things. And it was all based off that thought where I was like, man, we can all make the same thing and we'll all look different.
Yep.
You know what I mean? No matter how it is, right? It'll be like, and then the gentleman Bucket of Bolts, I think his name is Scott. He took it even farther. It's like, okay, let's just use one thing. We'll have a metal spring challenge, right? You have to use a spring, or you have to use a piston, or whatever it is. And that's even cooler, because that's, almost like, oh, now you're almost challenging yourself to work with that specific item, but you're still doing it in your own way. I thought that was kind of neat, and like a bonding experience. I felt like, and not all the guys, participated, that there was ever issues, but you still see that.
Yeah.
And when you're in those communities, and it's always kind of fun to watch,
That's
but you don't ever want to be in it.
Oh man. So I have a question, because I mean, I have a lot of favorite pieces that you've done. Like I love the man hearts.
Okay.
I love the train. I think the train is probably my ultimate favorite.
My first real like masterpiece. If you have masterpieces, right? Is I feel like every artist kind of does, and if that's what makes you part of being an artist, I would say
Yeah.
that's my first one. And it was very early on in what I was doing. It was, that was, I get that 4 year pop up right now in my time hops, or whatever you want to call them, right? And so that's still kind of neat that that was the first one, because I honestly, that's my favorite one too, and that's like the last, that one and then the forklift, and those are the two only real vehicles that I've done, and the vehicle things are super neat, right? And the dirt bike also is a personal favorite, being a big dirt bike guy,
Oh yeah.
which is stuff that I want to do more of. I would love to do like hot rods and all that kind of stuff, because I get a lot of requests for that. But man, like, it's expensive to do. It's a lot of time that goes into that kind of thing. So it's like, well, you can only get so much of those in, right? Which is I'm kind of toying with the idea of just wanting to um not take commission orders, and you know what I mean, like clean off my plate right now and then just
I can
make
feel
some
you.
neat things,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
Because there's a little joy that has been lost in it lately, right? Now that I'm this far into it, right? Like, and like I'm super backed up, and I've oversold myself, which is something that, right, like you asked my list of questions, I took some notes. What I have taught myself
Yeah.
now is to not oversell myself, and be like, hey, look, I'm 6 months to a year out, and that be okay.
Yeah.
And hey, it could be sooner, right? But like, not rush what I'm doing, because then it lacks, right? And that's not the point. And then with the last year that the world has had as well, it's just, I've kind of even lost some of the drive to do it, and then it's all compiled into that kind of loss of joy, you
Yeah.
know, with it, which has sucked. And I think I've kind of figured that out, and that's been good to kind of, all right, well, you got to deal with that and keep going, and still do it, right? Because you got commitments made, right? So,
Exactly.
that under commitment thing, and don't ever be afraid to raise your price, right? Shoot high,
Yeah.
right? Because you give a lot of things away at first to friends, and you feel like it's advertisement, but the more you give away, it's almost the more that others are like, well, they got a free one, they got a free one, they got a free one, right? And
Yeah.
you have more than one or two friends,
Hmm.
right? And friends have friends that you are friends with, and then they talk, and that it's not bad, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's you give it to them until, like, you make it a public thing, you don't even think of it, but then it kind of starts a thing, right? And that's still not a bad thing. You still need to do that, and that's the joyful thing, right? Like, you give Christmas presents, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because your friends and family love that, right? But it's hard to keep up with that too. You almost have to do a small thing that everybody gets every year, or hey, this year it's this family, this year it's this family, this year it's this family, or certain members, or whatever it is, right? Because I feel like when you're in that artist stage, you want to do that, or at least that's stuff that I want to do. I don't know how other people feel. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that? Do you do that for people? Do you give art gifts as art? Do you give art as gifts to your family? And how do you do that with, like, how do you continuously do that?
Oh, right. It all kind of adds up at some point, and then you're like, wait, can I continue to do this? Because I know for me, I'd love to do it, of course, like you said, around Christmas time, because it's like, you love giving a piece of yourself to other people that you love. And and it's great when they enjoy that, but then at the same time you're just like, well, then I love these people, and then I love these people, and then I love these people, and you're just like, oh shit, what did I just do? Like, so I totally get it, man. And to be honest with you, I mean, my career as an artist is very short. Like, probably within the last year I've started to take myself seriously, and I quickly learned that, for my personality type, I can't do commissions, because for me, it's like it gives me way too much anxiety. Like, I do not like to be a people pleaser, because when I am one, it's like I can't do it, man. It's too much for me. Like, I know what I can handle, and especially like when you really want someone to like something, sometimes you like are almost second guessing yourself. And then it's like this
Oh,
process that you go through. And I'm just like, well, you know what? Like, and then you, like you said, you lose steam and you lose your passion because you're like, oh, wait, I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm not doing, you know, what like I started all of this because I was passionate about it and because I had ideas and because I had, this whole list of things where I'm just like, oh, I could do that and I can do this. And then when everyone else realizes, oh, she can do that. Well, can you do that for me? And I'm like, wait, I I want to do it for me. And for me personally, like when I see other artists create something that came straight from them, I always like it even more, because like you almost get to learn a little bit more about the artist. And it's like, and when you like an artist and you like what they do, and most of the time it's because you kind of connect with that artist in one way or another with, through what they create or like their ideas or, certain, just styles or whatnot. And I've noticed that for me too. Like when I do commission and then when I do something for myself, I always love what I create for myself way more. And I always feel so much better about a piece when it's something that just came straight from me, even if it wasn't the greatest.
some of my favorite things are my stupid little hammers, or the funky little weapons, or like I have this little tiny um like revolver. They call it a Derringer. It's not a revolver, but it's a little single shot gun you have in like a garter, right? That I made as a pirate costume prop. And those little things like that are some of my favorite things. Like one of the only guns I've ever kept is this little double barrel pirate shotgun thing that I made just on a whim. I was having a super bad day and I came home and drank too much, and I was working on something else, and I was just angry, and all of a sudden I had this thing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make this right now. And I made it, and super simple, super ugly, and it's not really that fancy or anything, but man, I really like it for some reason.
Yeah.
And it kind of means something to me. Um, and I had I've had so many times where you're making something for somebody else, and it's not perfect, and it's not perfect, but you have to compromise on it. And when you compromise on a project so much, it doesn't it loses its luster for you when you look at it.
Mm,
But when you're selling something, you, you're not the one that's looking at it, right? It's
exactly.
what the customer's looking at for whatever that is.
Yeah.
um and that's not a bad thing. Like, it's not a bad thing to be an artist for hire. Like, I still am. It's a great way. I call it a beer money hobby.
Yeah.
I work a 9 to 5. um and I used to put in a little bit more time, but some things have changed, and so I put in a little less, but I'm getting it done. And it it has lost its luster a little bit, unfortunately, and I think that is because I'm an artist for hire, right? um, but that's okay, right? And I still love doing it.
Yeah.
It does suck that it makes you feel guilty when you want to work on something that is not what you should be working on. You know what I mean? And then just the order and how you work on things, and some things become daunting, so you put them off, and then you still need to deal with them, right? Because whatever, but you can still make a little bit of money doing this, and you might need the money for whatever reason, right? And that kind of thing can get a little bit, all wishy-washy,
Mhm.
and it does take a lot of the luster out of it. You kind of almost have to get all that cleaned up, and almost, that I'm planning on getting all that cleaned up and restarting, right? That's kind of my goal.
Yeah.
Because I've dabbled in making some little things for fun, and that does bring the joy back to it, right? And I think that if you are an artist for hire, you have to block out enough of that time to make a thing or two that does that keeps the joy into it, right?
Exactly.
um,
I
and
love
then when you're
I was
I'm
gonna say
sorry.
I was gonna say I love commission artists. Like we still, get commissions from people because, people create things and they mean a lot to you. And it's like we need commission artists. But then, as an artist, it's like I feel like a lot of us have a have some trouble balancing things, you know, like sometimes like we want to give everything or all. So it's like if we take commissions, we're like, you know, we get on this whole thing where it's like, okay, well, I've got all these commissions. And then we're like, oh, wait, I didn't block out any time for myself for what I want to do. And then it's just this game and this balance of making sure that like we're doing what we love for us, but then also we're doing what we love for other people. And, we do what we do, obviously, to, share what we create with other people and to make money, like bottom line, like if we're doing something, it costs money. And so usually things that cost money, you want to make your money back from that and a little bit more. I mean, most of us don't get into anything, and entirely just to, do it for free. And, when you want to see yourself as a professional artist, like we see ourselves making money, right? That's what we want. That's what everyone wants. Like, we're not going to lie about it, right? Like when I do my work and like my painting and stuff, like I create for me, but at the same time, I'm always like, man, like, yeah, of course I'd want to make money doing this. Because if you can make money doing what you love, then you can not make money doing something you don't love, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like once you start making the money, you're like, oh wow, then you start getting those aspirations of, oh well, I want to do this full time. Once you start making a little bit of money, a little bit more, a little bit more, like, oh wow, like I did an event where I set up a booth for a street exhibit, and you were supposed to make art there, which was kind of a little hard for me to do, out on Sutter Street in Folsom, on the sidewalk, pre-COVID. Right, this is, oh man, remember those days? And it it was neat, and I was gonna make some little things, but I was so busy just talking to people, because there was always somebody there to talk to about all my stuff that I had laid out, because I was allowed to do that. And I made $500 or whatever it was that one afternoon. I
Nice.
was just in shock, like, oh my god, I made, and I didn't, and I sold some $150 priced items, like just right there with Venmo and PayPal, and that was super neat. And thank God for these times, right? You could do that. That was neat.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was super cool. And it was really an eye opener. And then it was winter time, and those things kind of died down, and I had some big plans to really hit that stuff last year, and then COVID happened, and yeah, it didn't really happen. Um, which is fine. Um, I think that's kind of helped, with this little reset of what I think I want to do. But we'll see. It's going to probably be another year till I get everything I have to do
Yeah.
done. You would say. Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely kind of neat to go through that stuff.
Yeah. All in good timing, right?
I think so. I think so. You know what I mean? I think it's the goal is of where you want it to be, or where does it need to be, where should it be? You know what I mean? And I think I want it to be a little more of that fun hobby. I want to be able to make something and then have it for sale, have someone buy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not have as many of those commissioned item pieces, right? I think that's just kind of that's where it needs to be, right? I still have other aspirations in life. I'm not a full-time artist. I'm
Yeah.
not planning on being a full-time artist, right now. If whatever happens, and somehow one thing leads to another, I maybe, but yeah, right now it's not what it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be more fun that way.
Yeah.
Plus you look at like, oh, I am a person that would like to make people close to me more stuff, right? And I don't have the time.
Yeah.
Because then you feel bad that you're not working on the thing that you're getting paid, or you've already promised, or whatever it is to do. um so yeah, right, like that's kind of tough, right? It's all in that, I guess, that struggle of, oh man, this side hobby that I have is now not a side hobby. Then you start worrying about it during your 9 to 5 job, right? So then you, oh well, the 9 to 5 job comes a 9 to 4 job, and then a 10 to 4 job, and then you know uh yeah, it's just tough.
Yeah. So I have a question. Where do you, because you're a scrap metal artist, how do you accumulate
Okay.
all your scrap metal? Is it donated? Do you pick it up and
Oh,
fix cars or car parts? Like, how do you do this thing?
friends and family, man. Friends and family are the lifeblood, right, of what you do. And then Then you build up some connections, of course, right? Within, like with anything. My stepdad, who had passed a couple years ago, but he was my biggest supplier. He would just give me stuff, right? He was a big garage sale guy. He'd go around and people would have things, and and it's like junk over in the corner, it's all pile of metal. Oh, would you want to get rid of that? I got a truck. You can just throw it in the back. And oh, really? Oh, yeah, no problem. He'd spend a couple bucks and buy somebody's old chain or junk or whatever it was. And man, it was that's great. And then so I work in industrial area as well, and I do fencing and stuff like that. So I have kind of access to piping and steel and small pieces of that, and so that's kind of nice because I can pull those out of the dumpsters. And then you get the mechanics working on the trucks and the forklifts, and then you talk to those guys. Hey, when you take that off, take anything off, man. If a magnet sticks to it, I'll take it, right?
Yeah.
If it's a cool piece, or let me know if you throw something cool away, right? And then I had a good trick of I gave magnets to a bunch of my family members, and I told them, hey, if this sticks to something and you're gonna throw it away, you can get it for free or cheap or whatever it is, and it's cool. I want it, right? Because then I can make something out of it. And then that has been a good influx as well. My brother's a mechanic. I've got buddies that are mechanics, so that I can go through their scrap bins, or they'll bring me parts, and all that stuff. And it's so much appreciated, because I couldn't do what I do without that stuff, right? Like it's not like anything else. But then you even get into you cruise Craigslist, find old lawnmowers, you take them apart, motorcycles, you pull the gears out of them, gears, or any kind of neat steampunky thing. Those are always really cool. Things that roll and move, always neat. Bearings, stuff like that, wheels, because like the train, it actually rolled. The thing weighed like 60 pounds or something like that.
Oh, man.
And it rolled straight as an arrow. Somehow I've lucked into doing some things that work really well when they need to. I made a Gatling gun. I hope you've seen it. It's
Oh, yeah.
the neatest. It's the most complicated thing I've made. It's not the neatest, but it's the most complicated for sure. It spins around, it moves up and down. When you crank it over, the barrels rotate. There's a chain that rolls through it, and it works so well. And I eyeballed the whole thing and just kind of guessed and did a bunch of stuff. And it has one little giddy up in the chain, but the barrels, I rotated it and I spun them at like 13,000 RPM with the grinder wheel. and and it worked just fine. And I had eyeballed it and just tacked it all together, and it's all some EMT. And thinking back on that now, wow, a few less beers in me, I probably would have realized that could have blown apart and like really messed myself up. But it's not really a good idea at the time.
Yeah, I know. Man, that is nuts though, that you could just, how we just get inspired by an idea and then we're just like, okay, well, we'll just figure it out, I guess. And then you do it and you're just like, wait, I just did that. Cool. Like,
Oh, it's so cool. Exactly. Like I make because I make a lot of the guns and weapons and stuff like that. But man, they're fun. They're neat because you can make them and they can feel real-ish when you yield them. Like if I made a sword or a knife or a hammer or a gun or whatever it is, you got to play with it a lot. And that's, I think, why I like it so much, because it's fun. It's got to feel kind of right, when you make something. I made a little knife dagger that it felt really right. I made a full-size axe handle out of a chain with an axe head on it, and it felt right. And sometimes it doesn't look the same, but it does feel correct. And so that's kind of always important. I made a shotgun that pumps, because I made some that didn't. And of course, everyone says it would be cool if this pumped. I'm like, yeah, you're goddamn right. It would be cool if this pumped. But you know how hard that's going to be? And so finally, one day I broke down and I made one. And it was so cool. But man, the spring and the actuator, the way it worked, it had a spring and a pipe that slid in itself. And then it had some stops that were welded and then ground down, and a cover on it with a little notch out. And the spring I had to use was so strong, because I had to weld to it because I couldn't figure out any other way to bolt to it, that you had to like man up to pump. And so it was fun to hand it to people and be like, oh, here's my pump action shotgun. And they would be like, go to pump it, and they're like, no, it doesn't pump, and then I would just go and really know how hard you had to do it, and they would laugh and go, oh my god, and that's why I don't do that. My favorite thing that I think I make, that whenever I get a chance and I make something for myself, or probably the next time I sell one, I will make myself, is a sister of, is the lever action shotguns I make that look like an old 30-30 Western style shotgun,
Oh, cool.
or not shotgun, but rifle. And I made one for my grandpa, and my buddy made a wooden flag uh, out of different kind of wood. He stained it all, and then it has this cool engraving in the Union. And he does some cool stuff. Shout out AFW Works on Instagram.
Awesome.
But then he mounted it, and we mounted the gun to it. My grandpa just loved it. My grandpa has one of those guns for real life, and he thought it was the coolest thing. But I am going to make one of those myself, but I want to make one that actually does the lever action. I still don't know how I'm going to figure that one out, but whenever I have like real free time, that's what I will do. Because that's the one, and I think it's neat with the gun thing to do that. Because I don't see many other guys doing that. You see a few of them, but I think it's so few far between, because it is such a pain in the ass. Unless you do it kind of more steampunky, or and I think that's something that, if you ask, something I want to do try is, right now I make things really realistic, but yet I like cartoonish. I think is the avenue I try to go. A little oversized, a little big, little like yeah, the movie Roger Rabbit, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Shout out Jessica Rabbit, of course. But at the end of the movie, there is a gun, and it walks and talks, I think, and it's got this big old barrel, and it's this revolver, and that thing stuck out to me. I really liked that thing. And there was an artist, Troy Lee Designs. He does paintings of race car helmets, motorcycle helmets. I'm a big dirt bike guy. He drew a gun that was very similar, but it had eyes, probably in the late 90s. And I had seen that, and I thought that was super neat. And I think that the first gun I had made, I had kind of subconsciously had that image of that original cartoon, and then the other rendition of it in my head, and that's kind of what I had copied of to do it with the spark plugs, and kind of that thing. And I really like that kind of style, and I'd like to kind of do that a little bit more with like some rifles, or whatever it be. That I think that's kind of neat. Like an Elmer Fudd shotgun. I guess that's even kind of what I make my shotguns look like, right? I
Yeah.
like how kind of big and funky and dorky it is. And now look at us. We've canceled Elmer Fudd. You can't have that, right? No dumb redneck walking around the woods with a shotgun.
That's everyone of
But I mean, locally, that's right. That is us, right? State of Jefferson. Boom. Actually, you, right? I'm down in Orangevale, but we're kind of, we're pretty country if you go on the Flatlanders, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also would like to, things that I'd really like to try, maybe is I don't know, more vehicles for sure. I'd like to do some vehicles. I've seen some cool little hot rods that you can do. I'd like to do a lot more motorcycles, because those are cool. Vintage dirt bikes. I think that guys that are into, I think that what is double cool about that is that I'm going to geek out about it, because it just speaks. I have a dirt bike tattoo. I mean, Jiminy's,
Awesome.
right? And yeah, and it's I have two tattoos, and they're both a little lame, but they're my tattoos. Um, and yeah, I think that I would geek out making them, and that would be neat. But the guys that would see them that are into those motorcycles would definitely spend the money on my little creations.
Oh,
And I don't think that anybody else is doing that. Yeah, and I think that if I can get into that niche market, right? Because then I get a little name for myself. And then it can steamroll into more stuff, and I'm still making what I want,
yeah.
right? And kind of doing that. If I'm taking custom orders for things that I want to do, until that gets boring, I guess, then you have to reinvent yourself. Maybe that's what it is. You every few times you have to. I don't know. It's still a hobby. Like, I'm still not, right. I'm not anything. I'm not anybody important, right? Like I'm an influencer on Instagram, if that's important, but
Hey, it's some
honestly, I don't think it is. It's kind of neat. You know what I mean? It's always fun to be like, oh yeah, check me out on Instagram, and right, I'll bust out a card, and people go, what? Yeah, I got business cards, man. I need $20 on Vista Point or whatever. You can get a little business card. It's got a little steampunky design, and yeah, right. That fits my style. And it's got name, number, phone number, right? Like, I guess it's kind of nice to have for whatever. I mail it out with, I don't know, my whatever, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of neat to, when you tell somebody like, oh, check me out, and then they look at you, or they'll follow you, like, later time, and then send you a DM. I didn't realize how, what you actually meant, or how you were describing yourself. But dang, that's awesome, right? And so that's always kind of cool. But I think the coolest thing is um, inspiring other people to make art, right, or to create things. That's like, if it's just cool to hear, oh, because of what you did, I tried this and I thought it was cool, and here's what I made, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is, that's super neat. Like, I've had a few friends, startups and stuff. My buddy, shout out, AFW works on Instagram. He made some stuff, made my flag, and now he's got a good little thing going, making those, and he really digs doing that. He's super good at it, so that's cool. But then my brother, um, he actually, he dibbles and dabbles in it, not as much lately, but when he had a garage space with me when we lived together, he was making a bunch of cool stuff, and so that's super cool. And I have both a piece of theirs up on my wall. My other brother that I mentioned earlier, that was a mechanic, I've made him a gun and some other things, and I've made his wife some stuff, and um, he made me a cool little gun, and it's really unfinished, kind of crude, but it's pretty neat. And that's up on my wall too, and so that's kind of cool. And I think that's kind of neat. Then I'll get random messages on social media, Instagram and Facebook, and people's like, oh, here, check out what I made. I'll get messages from people on the other side of the world, like, that I don't, they speak and write a whole nother language than what I can even see, and it won't translate in the DMs. Probably a good thing for all those weird guys. But I can't see what it is, and it's a picture of this metal art thing, and I just, like, oh, that's cool, man. Like, thanks for sending it to me, and I'll, send them like a cheers or a thumbs up or whatever. And oh man, I think that's super neat. You know what I mean? I'll get messages from high school kids. Hey, I made this in my metal shop. Whatever. People ask me questions, and about welders and this and that. And I'm like, I don't know. I run the basic thing, but here's what I do. And they're like, oh, you make all that with that chunky thing? I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. But hey, it works for me, and it's like I said, I'm trying to be a creator, a maker, an artist, right? Not a welder. I can weld things, I can make things.
That's so awesome, man. And I totally agree with you. I mean, I really think like as artists, like when we know like it really matters so much like when we see other artists and they're doing things and they're going after stuff and like that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to start this podcast was because I have been inspired by so many different people that it has encouraged me to keep going and to keep going after like what I'm passionate about. And there have been, a couple people where I'm just like, if I never came across this person on whatever social media, it's like I wouldn't be here right now. Or maybe it would have happened some other way, you never know. But it's like as creators, it's like I really feel like, we need each other. Like we need to be inspired by other people that are doing creative things. And it's like I'm inspired by people who are doing things that are totally out of my lane, and it's some people like you just don't know who you're encouraging. And it's like sometimes, like you said, when you get those messages, you're like, man, that's really cool. Cause that's I think we need more of that in the world. We need more people who are just going after stuff, because they love to do it and just sharing it because, you never know, but just by sharing what you're doing, who it's affecting or who it's inspiring. And, that's why I want to bring, people like yourself, like on here just to talk about your journey and your process and, what it's like to just do what you're doing. Cause I feel like the creative process to so many people is just this big mystery. Like no one ever knows like how you do things. They're always just like, it's magic. Like you've just done it. Like, and they don't get like all the work that goes into it. And they're just like, they have no idea. So also to, bring awareness to like what different people do and how they do it. So, and what you do is just so freaking fascinating. Like it, it's really cool. Like it's one of the cooler things. And it's like, I love like, the style of it too, like everything. I feel like most of what you build are like power pieces, like when you see it, you just like, you just get hit by it and you're like, whoa, like that's awesome. So, I mean, so who, I know you've mentioned a couple people, but who have been like a couple of your inspirations?
Oh man, I guess it, I guess it depends. Like on social media, there's so many guys, that you would look to for inspiration. The guy Bucket of Bolts, um, for sure, he would. I'm a big Instagram guy, so I don't really venture much else but on Facebook, I'm in some groups and that kind of stuff. But I don't have as much luck on there for some reason. I don't know if that's just I'm not in the right algorithm or whatever that may be. But I do still put in a little effort there. But on Instagram mainly, for it kind of depends more on I guess you would say that I do scroll there often, and so I do kind of keep up with what everybody's doing or what have they've done, and so it'll depend more on what I'm making, right? If I'm making something that I've seen before, I'll kind of look at a couple of different things. I mean, the screenshots I have are just freaking endless. Of things that I would like to make. It probably is, 1,000 or two of different things. Um, but there's some really neat things, some really creative guys. There's a guy out of Massachusetts, I believe, Street Trends Metal Art. Um, his things are not as refined, but he does some super cool stuff. Very creative guy with the parts he uses and how he pieces them together. I have straight up copied him, and I told him, "Hey, man, I got commissioned to make something, and you had made it." And like the guy literally sent me your picture and said, "Can you make this?" And I said, "F yeah, I can. F yeah, I can." But let me clear it. And the guy goes, "What?" And I goes, I gotta ask that guy. So I sent him a message and, "Hey man, somebody asked me to make one of your pieces." And he's like, "Oh no, that's cool." And it was like a friend of a friend. Um, but he was cool with it. And I think that was something that we need to kind of do more. And I'm sorry, the piece was a Patriots logo, a
Oh.
New England Patriots logo. And I hate the New England Patriots for some personal reasons, as well as just because they are who they are. But man, it turned out super cool. Like it looks really, really neat. So on a bucket list item of things I want to make, I got to make a Raider symbol, right?
Okay.
Just because I was born and raised a Raiders fan, I should probably make one.
It-
Besides, you need to create one. If you're a social media artist, you need to create at least one piece for every holiday and big event throughout the year. At least one, because that day comes around, you got to have something to post. You need a football related item for the Super Bowl. You need a leprechaun. You need an Easter bunny. You need, some sort of military item for Memorial Labor, or some sort. That's how you get to have a bunch of followers, I guess you would say, right? It's those kind of things that I guess would help create your brand.
yeah.
And that's important if you're gonna actually do that. There's a guy that um, Cold Hard Art is his Instagram tag, and he is just amazing. I think he's only been in it for like a decade, and he was a mechanic for the NHRA drag racers. Super neat kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he makes these super cool aluminum sculptures, and then he takes all that old junk race car parts and makes things out of them as well. And the things he makes and the cleanliness of how he does it is just amazing. Um, and he's definitely a guy that is probably one of the best at what they do. He recently made a piece for like Alex Smith, I think, for his wife. Um, but Alex Smith's wife did send me a DM and said, "Hey, would you make something for my husband?" Of course, I replied, all professional. Like she gave the job to him. That was one of those ones. Man, that's cool. He's the best at what we do. So
Cool.
that's kind of neat, right? Like, but to at least be, if I'm on that short list, that's a pretty cool short list to be on, I would say. So I guess that's kind of neat. There was a stint where I could have had a little part to be on the reboot of I think Monster Garage. They had I had a producer in LA hit me up because I had auditioned for a couple of shows. I didn't make it on either of them, but then they had an issue and they had somebody cancel and needed a helper and someone to work and weld and make stuff. And I would get I would be on it, but I don't think I would be mentioned by name or whatever it was, but I'd be in the credits or whatever it was. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. And it was COVID and I had just gotten a new job during COVID time, which was cool. And um, I didn't take that, but it was cool to, I'm on somebody's short list,
Yeah.
right? Like that's kind of neat. You know what I mean? Um, so, heck, I'm doing this podcast with you,
Yeah.
so that's super neat. To What I've done has gotten me to do, these kind of things. I was on this other podcast one time where we sat around and drank beer for 3 hours and I talked and talked and talked way too much, probably said some dumb things. I think that he edited it pretty well. But yeah, it's kind of neat that what I've done, this little beer money hobby I have,
Yeah.
has gotten me to be able to do these things. And to have people say that I'm an inspiration. I look up to all these guys, and um, there's a bunch of different guys that do stuff. There's guys that work out of Little Spoons. My buddy Brooksy, his name is Brooksy Weld Done on Instagram. He does some super cool stuff with a bunch of little gears, and his style is somewhat similar to mine. I feel like we kind of vibe off each other and make some things. And once you're kind of cool with a guy that makes something, or I always like to think that if I made something and I kind of copied somebody, I will tag them in my Instagram post and be like, and I'll give them a shout out if I really did copy it, right? I've done that, I think, with a knife. And then the coloring, that's something that I would like to challenge myself with. You can paint with heat when you heat up certain thicknesses and kinds of metal, and
Oh, cool.
do things a different way. A guy that's really good at it is Made in Milwaukee. Um, Elijah up there does some super neat stuff with the coloring. And I would love, and even just some of the ways he makes things are just badass.
Yeah.
But that's a guy that, you see those things, you're like, oh, that's something I want to do. No idea how to do it. And you watch a video of him doing it, you tried it, it looks so crappy. I would you're an artist, you paint, things, right? And I've seen behind you there, and I cannot paint for shit. I go to wine and paint, and literally everybody hangs up their wine and paint, and mine is shoved in my closet, like in the corner. It's so bad. Whenever I do my first art gallery show, I'm going to bring it and say, like, this has got to go up at least somewhere. Like, if I ever get to that point, I would love to do that, just because that would be so funny. And like, this is the artist in me, just so you all know.
Totally
This is
should.
the drunk redneck in the garage with a welder. Yeah, it's like the moon or the sun, moon with the trees. No, my trees look like crap. I think I have a sun, not a moon, and it's bad.
I love it because I used to teach those paint parties. I taught them for a whole year. So I know exactly what you're talking about, because most of the time, I mean, the majority of it, those classes are women, and there's usually like one dude in the crowd, and they're just like, I was dragged here. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm gonna do it. And you know what? Honestly, like half the time, they end up like what you've described, and then other times I'm really surprised. I'm like, whoa, bro, like like it's amazing. So,
Yeah,
but
you can do that. Yeah.
but I love that idea how you said, you would love to put that up because it's funny. And I notice in some of your work, you have this kind of like cool humor in some things that you do, which I think is a part of maybe like who you are. Like, am I wrong? Like, you seem like you're kind of like, lighthearted kind of
Oh,
guy.
yeah. Oh, no, yeah. You can deal with everything with a smile or a laugh or a joke. There's never not a time for a good joke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I had mentioned the passing of my stepfather, but when we were going through the whole grieving process with my mom, and even planning his funeral and all that stuff, we're joking with people and laughing and all this stuff. And And even my mom is, and they look at us and laugh. And it's funny because my stepdad is kind of the one that had installed that in us, that you always, you can do everything with a smile on your face, and then deal with things when you have to deal with them. But yeah, it's just how I am, and how I was raised, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
um so that's that does, I try to, I am that way, so I try to bring that not only into what I make, but how I present it as well. I think that's also important. What you word, the Instagram post, or even hashtags you use, I guess, in this day and age. Um, but some of the funny things that I've made a um, I call it honey, but I have a or no, but I have a washer. It's called, and it has it's a big bolt. And it does look a little phallic, right? I made the guy look a little phallic, but it's a little man made out of a bolt, and a female made out of a nut. And the man's holding a big washer, and it's a mechanic joke that there's a bumper sticker made from it. And I made it, and it's kind of big, and the woman's at heels, and she's holding a purse, and she's running away from the guy, and he's like, "Hey, no, come on, we can still do this because I have a washer." And I think it's a joke about, like, oh no, I have a condom, it's okay. But yeah, and it's just kind of funny because I'd seen that sticker for so long, and then I had seen somebody else make it, and I'm like, oh, and then a couple of guys made it, and I'm like, I got to make one of those. But also, like with I make little hammers. I may have these little wrenches that are like wrenches mechanics use, and the handles of them are like a little silhouette of a woman, kind of like a stripper out leaning on a pole,
Yeah.
and that's what you would hold on to. And I use them for all sorts of different little things. My favorite one is to make a ornament of of just that. Just make it like a Christmas ornament, and I give them to random people, and they laugh so much because it's kind of funny,
It's
like, because it is what it is. And like, all I did is make it what it was, and they ask what it was, and I show them a picture, and they're like, "Oh, that's funny." And No Fear made those wrenches back in the day. I think it was kind of funny. But yeah, even just the one of the more artistic things, I guess you would say, I've done is Duckosaurus, hashtag Duckosaurus. And it is, oh, hold on. This is when I learned that my favorite part of doing this is being a little too intoxicated and making the story up of what I'm making. And it was the metal duck challenge that I had referenced earlier with bucket of bolts. And my Duckosaurus was a half duck, half machine, created by the US government to sneak in behind enemy lines and assassinate world leaders and bomb conventions in mass quantities with no one know whose was doing it. And it was made out of the part of a differential of a car for the body, and it had these wings that were shields, and they had guns like a P-51 Mustang, and it had these bombs that were spark plugs and missiles underneath them, and he had teeth and um, radio communication, little antenna in the back, and all this like military stuff on this duck. And I was like, man, that was bitching to make. Like, and it was, I didn't even count how many hours it took me to make it because it was just so fun. And it just kind of kept rolling. And I was going through some rough times, so I was drinking a little bit. And but yeah, it turned out really neat. And I had the son of a bitch forever.
Oh man.
And I wanted like, oh, forever. And a lot of people really liked them, but they didn't want to pay the price I was asking for them because I had a general gist of how many beers I drank while I made them. And then if you think, okay, well, it takes me X amount of time to drink a beer, do that math. There's your number.
That's
Here's your sign, or here's your sign. Yeah, I used to call them beer hours because I would sell things at first. Well, like this all started. Okay, let's rewind. This all started really to get money profitable when I was going through a rough time, a divorce, and I was spending a lot of time in the bars and making some rough decisions and spending too much money for sure. And I realized, I can make something and sell money and drink beer standing at my workbench. So why don't I just do that and make the money for the beer that I'm drinking and the electricity that I'm burning, and maybe something else, right? I can drink nicer beer, no more PBR. Yeah, I still drink PBR. Still drink PBR because it's delicious stuff. Not right now because it's National Beer Day, so I felt like I had to upgrade.
Oh my god, it
But
really is today?
yeah, today's National Beer Day.
Oh my god, I should have listened
I
to
mean, I don't even know if that's real though. Is that real? Like you see that on social media? I don't know, but everyone said it, so I'm with.
I know. I almost honestly grabbed a beer because you seemed like a beer guy and it seemed appropriate, but I was like, well, I just won't. But now I'm regretting it. So
No, I feel like it's only, cheers, by the way.
yeah.
It's only fitting. I mean, it's got, yeah, I guess you got to do that on the day. So I used to call them beer hours, and I would charge for how many beers I drank during the project. And I use like I figure $8 a beer for a bar, $7, $8 was the tip, right? And then that was my hourly rate, or my half hourly rate, right? So I was making $16 an hour, you would say. But I would tell people that's a 12 beer project, or that's a 15 beer project. And I'd always break it out that way, and they'd laugh, and it was a cute little niche or whatever. But that was kind of how it started at first, and that was kind of nice. Um, but yeah, back to your wine and paint. I always thought I should do a whiskey and weld night with like one or two couples. I know, right?
Oh my,
Wouldn't that be awesome?
you would so be there.
Oh, yeah, you couldn't have too much whiskey because you are playing with fire and all that stuff. But like I've done some date nights, or a date night, I guess you would say, with my current girlfriend. Shout out to Ace. And we made a sign that hangs above our bed that has love, um, written out of old junk. You know what I mean?
I
And we were drinking and hanging out, and that was kind of cool. Yeah, yeah. And then I've had some of like I had her brother come over, and we drank some beer, and he made a rose for his friend, and I've had other people come over and do it. A few other buddies, and I think I haven't had a couple come over, but it would be cool, right, to come do that with like people come over and
yeah,
weld or right. I guess there'd be a lot of liability in that. Let's not advertise that, but you
yeah,
know, you can slide up in the DMs on that one. That one's okay. Um, yeah, right? Like, but that would be cool. You know what I mean? And then I guess it'd be neat to kind of show people like, hey, it's not that scary, right? Like, and if I did it right, like I could design a project and then cut everything and then have them cut one or two pieces and say, hey, here, you cut one, but I cut everything else you need. Like I could probably plan that out. And do that. And I guess that would be a cool thing to do for, like, I don't know, some friends, I guess you would say, because I don't think you would want that hang that liability over somebody if they're using those kind of power tools, right? But
yeah.
if you're somebody's friend or whatever, that's kind of neat.
Have him sign a waiver, be like, hey, it's all on you.
Oh man. Yeah, it's all on you. Don't drop that on your foot, because you won't have a foot no more.
We were into glass blowing for a while when Josh and I were first dating. That was before we were married, forever ago, actually. But we got into glass blowing, and there was a guy that we had, found, and he did that. He brought people in his garage, and he
Yeah, yeah.
it was the coolest thing ever. Like, I almost can't even remember, like, a cooler experience, and we made these, like, little glass jewels, and made little mushrooms inside of it. It was super simple, but it's something I'll always remember, and it was the coolest date ever. Like, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Right. I think that, yeah, that is I mean, that, and like we cool dates, like, you do the axe throwing thing, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If depending on where you are, who you are, that's, those kind of things are cool. It's just, man, I don't know. That's a big investment, but it is kind of neat, to do on the DL, I guess you would say, as far as that stuff, the glass blowing guy, and you look, and now there's a show on Netflix about glass blowers, and um, all that kind of stuff. So that's neat.
Yeah. So I have kind of a random question. I thought of it last night because I was just like, man, I really want to get people to think big because I'm always thinking big. Like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it big and I'm going to go all the way and I'm going to give it 100%. So the question I have for you is, if you could build something that is ginormous, everything, you have all the supplies for it, you have the people to help you, you have, unlimited whatever, to do the project. If you could make something huge, giant, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Something giant,
Giant, and it would be
like huge, like huge.
like an art sculpture that would be sitting so.
Yeah, I got you. Like, well, okay. So inspiration wise, the chicken on Hazel and Madison. Have you ever seen that?
I don't
It's
think.
like a 10-foot tall chicken made out of car bumpers. Yeah, it's on Hazel and Madison. There's a bull, a Bronco roping a bull at a In and Out in Woodland, I think, and then there's another chicken downtown somewhere, or somewhere in Midtown. Um, but they're about 10 feet. They're made out of car bumpers. They're super neato. I saw them as a kid back in like 2000 or whatever on the Modern Marvels TV show on History Channel. Which is a super neat show. But oh, I remember seeing those, and so something like that, something like I've made some 3-foot tall chickens, but some sort of animal
Yeah,
probably. Uh, I I don't know. Yeah, I guess you would say a dragon.
that'd be cool.
Dragon would be cool,
Yeah, a
like
giant.
a life size dragon. There's a guy in like India, I think, or Taiwan maybe, or something, that works at like a scrapyard that does that. That does make these huge sculpture, like okay, an Optimus Prime. That would be cool, right? Or a Transformer, um, something like that, or like an Iron Man. And that guy actually does that stuff, like using real semi truck parts and all that thing. And that's super neat. That would be something that would be cool, I guess you would say. Man, yeah, that's a tough question,
Yeah,
because I'm limited in size, I guess you would say, because of weight.
mhm,
Right, metal heavy.
yeah.
I always have wanted to make this. I have this head of a robot that I've wanted to make, I guess you would say, that's probably going to be full size, life size, 6-7 feet tall robot, um, based off of the little head that I kind of have going. But it's just parts right now. But I kind of set them aside, like, oh, that's kind of cool. But man, I have more projects on that list of projects that I want to make that I haven't gotten to yet. Like I have parts for a chess set and a chess board.
We
I
just
have.
this recently, actually. I wanted to teach my daughter. I was like, well, because someone else in the family, their kid, understood how to play chess. And I'm like, I've never understood this my whole life. I'm like, all right, if their kid can learn it and my kid can learn it, then I sure can learn it. And now my husband is
Yeah.
all the time, he's like, let's play, because he just wants to win.
Oh, yeah. What's funny is I'm me and my girlfriend. I'm the loser. She's just so talented at everything. I never. Oh, it's it's so awesome, and it's so cool, and it's cool to be like, oh yeah, she's the winner.
Yeah.
But to play her all the time is, it gets demoralizing. I think the problem is that when I win, I do gloat a little bit, probably a little too much, I guess you would say. Because man, I don't win often.
Yeah.
There was one night where I won like two things at first, and then I never won again. I think I won Connect Four, by the way. We had like a game night, right? And we played all of our games, and I won Connect Four twice, and then
Congratulations.
never won. Hey, hey, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it was no bueno. But yeah, so yeah, and I think, yeah, it's okay. Like, you got to just deal with it, right? Like, sometimes you're not as good as the other people, right? So, but you.
Honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of like that with my husband, where I'm kind of the one that's good at everything. And then he gets by, you know what I mean? And then I help him get by even more.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Know that
Uh-huh.
we both
Uh-huh.
understand this, and we know where each other is at. But there's some things that he's great at that I just suck at, and I'm just like, well, you know what, like I'm telling you, we were made for each other, because all the things that I'm not good at, he's good at, and the other way around. So it kind of sounds like maybe that could be the situation for you too.
I think that's important in every healthy relationship,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so no, that's good. And she's super supportive, and really, like, she kind of pushes me a little bit more,
Yeah.
um
Good.
than I push myself, I think, which is awesome. And I think that's important for many artists, is to have a supportive, structure around you, right? Those ones close to you really have to be, um supportive in what you do, you know what I mean? And because they have to sacrifice time with you. They have to sacrifice, if you're doing the selling stuff at little craft fairs or whatever, they got to go with you or help you set up, or you're not there, all that stuff, right? And that's, so shout out to all of them, because that's super just cool, and then, to open that up, you have to have friends and family, right, that are supportive, get your name out there.
Definitely
um
big thing.
y- right, like, sharing your social media posts, like, it's just crazy how how sometimes, like, that just doesn't happen anymore, you know what I mean? Like, I started kind of growing to a certain point, I guess you would say, in some aspects of it, and um, either those ones close to you are kind of like, oh, he doesn't need that, right? And it's like, no, like, oh, if you think something cool or neat, like, it would be awesome, even if the people, even if you think that the people around that already follow you are going to see it, like, you shared something or like something or commented or whatever, like, I think that's always important, because with the way that all works, and the algorithm and that, like, the more of those little interactions you get, the more popular you can go.
Yeah.
So if you really want to succeed, you have to have a lot of that little stuff um to boost you to the next little level, to get, to go viral, I guess you would say, right? So if you follow somebody on social media, and them, and even if you don't love the piece of art, or whatever, even if you like it or save it or share it, even, to your post, right, or comment, like, oh, that's neat, or you do like it, tell people, right? um the artist appreciates that, because that not only, has your friends and family member engage, has the opportunity to engage in them, but it also, boosts them up in said algorithm of, oh, hey, this could happen for that must be that a good content, so let's, let more people see it, and then the more people that do that, oh, that must be good content, let's let more people see it. So you really start looking at that stuff, and it, all that kind of little stuff helps.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, we in the day and age that we're in now, we have to follow these weird, unknown, kind of known algorithm rules. And we kind of have an idea how it works, but it's still this like huge, big mystery. And you're just like, I don't know. All I know, maybe if I get enough likes, maybe if I get enough shares, like, I don't know. We really don't know. And then it really does, mean a lot to artists, like when something is shared, because it's so easy to do. It's like we're not, it doesn't take any money. It takes like a click, a simple little click. And I've found out that most of the time, I'd say about 90% of the time, when I sell a piece of artwork, it is never like an immediate friend or family member. It is always someone who is a friend of a friend or a friend of a family member. And it's like, most of my sales have come from those kinds of people that I, would normally not have that connection with, if not be, my work was shared or someone showed a picture and be like, hey, this is my friend or this is my family member. And they're like, oh, wow, I love that. And I've sold a piece. So it really makes a huge difference.
I can't agree more. I To be honest, nowadays those are not my primary sales, but there was a time that they were, and I honestly wish that they were more, because, gosh, I don't have to ship those things, and that what I do, and I think that most art, unless it's a digital art form, I guess you would say, is what it looks so much cooler in person,
Mhm.
even if it's the man heart, like you said, or whatever it is, it's just always so much cooler in person. And not only that, with my stuff, I encourage people, pick it up, touch it, play with it. I like making the handheld things, because how often do you get to touch and feel your piece of art?
Right.
The Gatling gun, population control, I called it. Just, God, I love the name, but man, it does kind of irk me to say it out loud, I guess you would say. That's probably the first time. um but yeah, it's so cool to pick it up. You hear it, you feel it, you aim it, you crank it over. It's heavy, all that stuff. And like I mentioned earlier, the shotgun being hard to pump, like, it's cool that you can touch that kind of stuff, right? And so it would be neat if, more of my clientele was uh, locally based, friends and family, and um, maybe that's just because, I think maybe I mismanaged the chances I had to do that because I got busy with other people, you would say. Um, live and learn, right? Advice to other people. Um, or at the same time, sometimes it's just you ask too much of a price, but at the same time, like, if it's selling, it's selling. If it's not, it's not. I think that's always tough. You know what I mean? On how do you price art, right? And then how do you price art as an artist, as opposed to how does art get priced at an art gallery, as opposed to how does art price, on the internet, as opposed to what's the buddy deal, right? Selling art is tough.
Yeah, no one teaches.
Making art is awesome. Art is really hard, right? Like, yeah, look at all this cool stuff I make, and it's fun to make that. But then you start selling stuff, and like, I think that I need a little while. Eventually, I think it would be nice to just have that feeling of, here's what I made, here's what I want for it. You know,
Totally.
coming all and not right. And I have a couple of pieces that have sat around that you would say that I didn't think would sit around. That here's what I want for it, like that. But that's fine, right? Like, it can sit there or whatever, or someday I'll find a need to donate that, whatever it is, to whatever, right? Like, um so what do you do, right? But it's okay, but I wanted to make that at the time, you know um it is what it is. Luckily, like, if I've ever had a commission that got canceled, I was able to sell it. um but whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like, but it is tough to sell. It's definitely, then you look at like how's an art gallery? I mean, yes, an art gallery has to make money, right? But then, art is worth so much. So then, you know, do you just tell, well, that's the price, and then they add their commission? Do you take a cut because it's their commission, right? Like all that kind of thing. Like, how does that work out? Like, I had a garage sale one time, and it was a garage sale to have a garage sale, but then I sold a bunch of art as well,
Cool.
and I made like, I don't know, $900 just on art.
Damn.
Like, yeah, just laid it all out on the, like, for weekend garage sale, and I had posted it on a couple of local pages, and garage sale. Oh, we got art too, and then some of the signs said, all of them had art as well, and yeah, me and my brother, my brother sold something, and then I sold a bunch of things, and this lady came. She said she owned an art gallery, and like, she's like, yeah, this is a great deal. This is awesome, and I'm like, son of a bitch. Well, can I get a card? I can make things. We can work deals. Like, if I sold you that at this price, like, make some cooler and a little more. Like, come on. But never heard anything. But whatever. She gave me $500 and walked away. Like, I don't care. So, but at the same time, like, it would be cool to get in touch with that lady again.
Yeah.
And it's probably COVID related, right? Like, I get it. No worries. Uh, who knows what happens, right? But
Yeah.
what do you do?
I think, I think now we're starting to see things open up a bit more. I really think pretty soon here it's gonna get better, for artists and creatives and, whatever, like galleries and street fairs and events and places where we can sell our art. Cause I, went into my journey this year as an artist and I'm just like, okay, well, I know I can sell my work online, but then all my in-person options have just been totally wiped out. And I did one art show last year and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like I could probably do this. And, with everything happening, it's just everything just gone. So, but anyways, I guess I want to get back on track here because I have one more question.
Sorry, I tend to do that.
I know, right? I'm just like, wait, what am I talking about? So, oh, your horse head, because I know you're still working on that now.
Oh, my horse head. Yeah, my actual art piece.
Yeah, how's that going?
There. Look,
No
there
way.
it is. Yeah.
Oh man.
It's almost here. Hold on, let me get it.
How heavy is that?
Oh, I don't even know yet. It's, as you can see, the table's on wheels. I made the table for my daughter to learn how to weld on, and it
Oh,
serves a great purpose for this.
yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy for sure.
How many?
It's going to get bigger. It's got to get some change. About 160 hours right now. But it's going to get some chains. It's actually going to look like this guy. It's this has to happen back here, but that's the company that gave me that paid me to commission me to do it. I guess they didn't pay me, but
Honestly, so freaking cool. Like there's so much going on there, and I know it's like on camera, and I'm sure it just is not even doing it justice, but I'm telling you that thing looks incredible. Like
I don't really like it. No, I mean it's cool. It is, and it does start to look like a horse head if I look at it long enough, but
oh, it
I
looks
don't know. I think I have trouble like not looking at every little thing. And maybe when I'm done with it, I'll look at it. There's been a few projects I've had that have had that I haven't liked until I was literally like done with it. There's been some guns and um some what did I not like? The dinosaur that I made for my sister-in-law. I did not like that thing for a long time, and then all of a sudden I looked at it and I said, you know what? It's perfect. Like it really is perfect. Or uh oh, I made a chicken, same kind of thing. Didn't like it for a long time. But yeah, a couple of little things like that. You have this. You have those some projects that you just love. As soon as you love the idea. I'm working on this carburetor. I don't know if I've posted that lately, but it's a dirt bike related thing, and it's this iconic drawing that was on the same guy Troy Lee designs. If you want to talk about inspirations, that guy's just amazing. Now he's this big corporation, but he's all done just from being an artist. So that's super neat. But he drew this carburetor that has a face and a mouth and it flames out the back, and so I'm making one out of meat grinders, kind of a rendition of that, and I'm making it for me. It's like the first thing I've ever made, like legit art piece that I've made for me. And I'm probably gonna like give this thing away or sell it for a bunch of money because it's super freaking cool
so
and no one's ever done it. It's super neat. But I'm making it like I started while I was in the horse head because the pieces of metal, I was going through pieces for the horse head and everything. If you look here, everything is on one side, and then on the other side it's the same piece of metal. At least I'm trying to have that be symmetrical.
it
So
really
you kind of try to, yeah, you got to try to have everything match left to right. I think maybe I'm a little OCD probably about that kind of stuff, but I do like that, if it's going to be one way on one side, it's got to be the other way on another. And I do that with stickers on cars and dirt bikes and things. Like I don't like things that aren't
yeah.
even. Right. So yeah. Okay. So to come full circle, yes, I am OCD and I don't like things that are not even. So that's what I did with this, and I think that's why it took me forever. And it's not perfect on either side. Like there's some parts where um, things I cut different, or the shape's different, or whatever it be, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I learned to kind of deal with that, but I think that's probably why I don't love it. Um,
And most of the time, no one would ever notice but you, like the artist. But I'm the same way. Like I'll notice all these little things and I'm like showing my husband, I'm like, well, this here and this here. And he's like, oh, I didn't even notice it. I mean, I guess like now that you pointed out, maybe a little bit, but then I'm just like, we're our worst, critics, and we're so hard
oh
on ourselves as artists.
yeah,
It's a thing, I think, I mean, at least from all the people I've talked to, we're pretty critical.
right. It has to be because you're always just that's not perfect, right? You're like, yeah, it looks all right, but it's not perfect.
But it
That
never
could be.
but
That's not true. Sometimes it is. The train was perfect. You know what I mean? Like the train was. I still will like post the train every once in a while, and I'll look at it and I go, there isn't anything I could have done better. You know what I mean? Like and there's only a few projects I have like that I've done there's the shotguns I do have all fence stuff. I call them home defense. Um, I really think that those are perfect because the way they feel, the way they look, the price point, and how much I make making them right.
yeah.
Everything about that son of a bitch is perfect. The train, perfect. Didn't make any money on it, but that doesn't matter. I made that as my first cool thing. I donated it for my daughter's school. They had an auction, the train museum. So when I found that out, I was like, well, I'm gonna make a train to donate. They asked me how much I valued it. And I was like, I have no idea. Like I have no clue. I've only sold a few things like by that point. I'm just like, I don't know. Like we have to put something. I'm like unobtainable. I like, undetermined. Genuine art. I don't know. Don't put a price tag on it. You're right. Like they made me say like whatever it was. So I said like 2 grand, and it auctioned off for like $1,600 or $1,800 or right around the 2 grand number. So like super neat. And it was a bidding war, and I was there in person, and it was super cool. Like that was a neat experience. You want to talk about cool experiences? Is
Yeah.
there's two guys, and they were going up $50 every time from like $1,000, and it was like $100, and then it was $50, and I was like, man, this is badass. Like this is kind of neat. It went on for a good minute. There's a big old roar at the end, and I'm sitting there right next to the stage. Like it was cool. It was, like that was kind of a neat experience. Um, the art thing, the art selling my art in person for the only time I've ever done it on the Folsom. It's called the Folsom Live Art Experience, I want to say. Super neat kind of thing. They encourage artists to come out and paint or do your art live in person, and then you can sell stuff on the side. And like I said, I had a plan. I was going to make art. I just was always so busy. I have a better plan to make art next time I go. Um, to actually do it. But hopefully, again, I'm super busy. But I had a genuine spot right up there on Sutter Street in East Bidwell, like right on the, or whatever that is, Sutter Street, up on the hill that comes over by the Folsom Hotel. And so I set up all my stuff, big old machine gun over on the corner, and had a couple of people say that they had driven by and stopped and had to come check out what the heck was going on because there was a gun on the street. And so that was kind of a cool experience, right?
Yeah, hopefully
I always
get back to doing that. Was that an every year thing that they do?
It was the first year, and then I was signed up to do the second year, and then they had canceled it. So
We'll see, huh?
yeah, hopefully we'll see, because it was kind of neat. I didn't get a chance to walk around, but I had a bunch of family members that had randomly showed up throughout the day, and they had said there was a bunch of cool stuff going on. And I encouraged them, like, hey guys, go buy something. Like go, those people would appreciate it. Like if you can afford it, buy it, right? Like if you like it, you know what I mean? If it's something like it's cool. And not only that, like it does make you look fancy, right? Like, oh, I was at a craft fair, and here was a piece of art, and I bought it because it was cool, or I liked it. And then you put it up on your wall, and then that's the art I bought. You know what I mean? And that's that, right? That's kind of a neat thing. You know what I mean? Like
And
if
now,
you can afford a little piece of art from somebody, the artist appreciates it, you're gonna love it, right? Like
yeah. And like these days, I feel like anyone can be an art collector. It's not just like these like big fancy people anymore. It's like, hey, it's like everyone is realizing art matters, and it makes you feel good, and it changes your environment, and it make it you just connect with something, and it's a cool thing to have something to even just to show off. You're just like, yeah, this is cool. And sometimes it even comes with an experience and a story, and it's, man, I really want to make art important again or famous again, because people are doing so many cool things. And I feel like more and more people are realizing that they can have this stuff in their homes too.
Oh, and I think that's the platforms that we have to advertise ourselves as artists and sell our stuff, and people have to interact with you. You know what I mean? Like I've right, like you've said, like, oh, you and your husband are big fans of my work, and eventually you want something. And I've had many of people that have said, oh, like, or they've bought something and said, oh, I've followed you for a long time, then finally, here was the spending money, or here was the reasoning, or whatever the have be. um like, oh, and I do the piece, and that's super neat. Or I have a one gentleman that has bought in 4 or 5 of my pieces, and they're all up in he has a workshop where he makes custom props for race boats, like offshore race boats. And he makes these props and does these really cool things. And I've made him stuff, and he puts and he makes some neat stuff. And my art and some other guys' art is up in his shop, and it's super cool. Like that's kind of neat. I made him a tabletop, and and I do these neat bottle cages, I call them, and those are cool. If you're a welder, that's a great welder's gift to give to somebody. You get a bottle of booze, you weld a cage around it, or you put a lock on it somehow, and you make a trick. Mine have a trick where you can unbolt it with hidden bolts that look like they're welded, and get to the booze still, so you don't have to cut open the cage. But first when I did, I made a little file, right, to go with it as kind of a joke, like, oh, you have to file it off, right? um, and then the last time I actually had the socket that fit the bolt, and then so I welded that to a little handle, and then the file on the other end, and made a little holder for it in the stand. And the customer ordered a grenade out of nuts on the side of it, but I had done that, and then the handle of the file actually was the nut driver to get the bolt off. And so I thought that was kind of neat, right? Like, oh, and that's always the thing. If I'm making the same thing over and over again, I gotta try to one up yourself, right? If you're not challenging yourself, then you're just, you know, what are you doing, right? Like, you're not bettering yourself. You're just, I guess again, that's the joy, the thing, the reason we do it is challenge yourself, do it better, do it nicer, do it,
Yep.
whatever it is, right? And also, I think you were saying about more people bringing art into their homes and or buying art or being an art collector. It's like, I think, especially with what I do, what is art? I think is a question of what do people consider art, right? And my take on it is a different take, right? Like, once I was called an artist, I do appreciate, painters and sculptors of other, clays and sorts, and the more traditional types of artists, you would say. Um, but then still, sometimes I look, so I'm like, that's not art. Like, come on, that's like, I don't understand. I just don't, and that's fine that I don't understand. But I'm not gonna, like, badmouth them. I'm not gonna say that. I'm just gonna look at it with that dumb redneck look on my face and be like, I don't get it. I don't get her. But again, when I make something, it's like, hey, to me, this is art. Or when I see, you see like random sculptures, or I still in the fencing industry, so construction and architecture, I'll look at the way the buildings are built or designed, or things are even just made. Or you look at some nice concrete, sometimes you're like, that's really nice concrete, like that's art to somebody, right? I look at a fence, like, I can't tell you, my child will still tell you to this day. You meet her, she'll say, oh man, my daddy will pull over on the side of the freeway, we'll look at fences or houses, or and yeah, it's true. Once a week I'll stop and I'll look at a fence for whatever reasoning it be. um but yeah, that structure, that building, that whatever you do as a passion, anything that you're passionate about can be an art. If you're passionate about it, right? Like, you have dance and music, and anything, right? Anything you're passionate about, it can become an art. And I think that your passion is what makes it an art.
Exactly.
So if you don't have passion for it, then it's not technically an art piece or a sculpture or something like that. It's a creation,
Yeah.
right? It's created, it's still made, it's still there, but it's not art because it's not done with oneself.
Yeah. It doesn't have that
Which,
magic.
exactly, right? It's I don't know if that makes me sound super hoity-toity, artsy or whatever, but like, yeah, no, I guess that's true. It's like, if you look at it, like, oh, it's cool, it's cool, I made that, right? And then sometimes I look at it and it's like, that's a piece of art,
Yeah.
right? And so, um,
Like someone took
that's
on it and put their, effort and their heart and soul into something. Like when you can see that, you're like, that's art. I can appreciate that. But then other times, because I've been in museums where art is supposed to be. And sometimes I'll see something and it's like a big white canvas and there's like a splatter on it. And I'm like, did this? Like, how did you get in here? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, to me, I'm like, that's not art. Like, that took zero effort for you. So I totally understand what you mean when you're just like, well, that's just something. Like, I don't see that as art. And for me as a painter, when I see someone do something that took them probably 30 minutes and it's, something that would take me 30 minutes or less and it's hanging up in a giant museum, I kind of just have to shake my head. I'm like, I just don't understand this.
oh yeah, no, and I I see a lot of stuff, right? And that some people will post, or I've had people that have bought stuff, or The thing I hate is the worst is you go to like a little shack in Monterey, or random places I've seen on the side of the road, and they have all these metal sculptures and figurines and all this garden art and all this stuff, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, this shit's really cool. Like I don't necessarily, it's not my style necessarily, but it's really cool. It's made out of metal, and everyone's like, oh, you can make that. Oh, you can make that. Oh, you can make that. Yes, I can make that, but I ain't making that for $25, and I'm not painting it for that $25. And when I paint it, it's going to look like crap because I can't paint. We already discussed that. But it's going to take me way more, and I'm just going to make that for you for $100. It's going to be silver, and that's what you're going to get. And sorry, like that, it does, it's a little buggy as far as that kind of stuff goes, but at the same time, you just have to look at something and distinguish, oh, that's something that's different than what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to create, what I want to be. But yeah, at the same time, I like to make little golden sculptures of stuff of, that's fun, that can be relaxing, that can be a nice gift for somebody. But it's not what I want to do, so it's like, again, we did our one art, selling in person, and that was super neat. We want to do it again, but at the same time, it's like, well, what sold, what did anything sell, how much of what you sold, what should you bring this time, where are you selling it? I think I could do like great at a gun show, or I could do super crappy at a gun show because I'm not selling real guns. I don't know, but I feel like I got to at least try one gun show to show gun people what I can do. And man, I get a lot of hate from gun people sometimes, just because it's not a real gun, it's stupid, doesn't look like. My amazing girlfriend and some of her friends have modeled some guns for me,
Yeah.
and they were touching the trigger, and or they weren't practicing proper trigger control, trigger finger discipline, as it's called.
Yeah.
And man, they just got tore up on social media, tore up. And of course, like I had sent some of the stuff to the gun pages, or they'll have reposted them, and some of them won't repost them because of that, right? For that reason, because man, it's intense, like, wow, I cannot believe you people are, obviously it's got spark plugs, and it's, does not look like a real gun, but it's gun like, and so it's still it's funny that which niche, even the niches you think you can get, um, or you should be in, aren't necessarily the right ones. You know what I mean? Which is why I think there's some other ones that I would be more passionate about that I should look into, that I haven't ventured into yet.
Yeah. So, man, I'm thank you so much, because I usually plan on being like 45 minutes an hour, and I just totally like lost it, like your whole thing, your story and everything. So I don't want to take too much more of your time, but seriously, man, like thank you so much for just taking time out of your day, to be here and to talk to me. And just, because of the kind of podcast that it is, I, have one more question. Do you have anything you would like to say to any viewer, any creative that could be watching this and, is just maybe at a spot where they're just like, well, I want to do this. I'm passionate about this, but, are maybe questioning or second guessing themselves, or, was there any point in your, career or whatever you want to call it as an artist that you may have been there and you got yourself past that?
Oh man, I think I'm there a lot of the times. If you look at it on a small scale, you can't. Sometimes you can't figure out how to fit a piece into somewhere, or how to shape something, or how something should lay out size wise, configuration, whatever it may be. um, and if you blow that up, you can get that to the, man, I don't know where to sell my stuff, I don't know how to sell my stuff, what to price my stuff, um, you know even more how to advertise your stuff, get out, can I even make that, can I do that, my biggest advice definitely would be to just try it, just do what feels right, do what comes to you. 9 times out of 10, your first reaction or thought is the correct one.
Yep.
And if it's not, sometimes you have to learn from your mistakes. um my boss at work, the one of my bosses at work is a big motivational speaker guy, and he had just referenced a quote this morning about placing value on a mistake from the knowledge of how not to do something.
Yeah.
Because once you do something wrong, you automatically know, boom, I can't do it that way. It doesn't work. But you don't know that until you try it. So try away, right? Try doing something different. Try creating something. If you're not sure how to do something, pick something. This horse head's taken some extra time because I didn't know how to do some things, and I tried something and I had to cut it apart, and then I had to try it a different way. I had to cut it apart. And then sometimes I got frustrated. I just looked at it like, shit, I don't freaking know. I can't figure it out. It shouldn't be that way. It should be bigger. It should be this. And then I just did it. And then guess what? It just worked. Like that. I can't tell you how many times I've been in the process of a project and gone to bed at 12 o'clock at night, super frustrated, not figured out how to make whatever I was making, and laying in bed, trying to think of something, trying to think of something, trying to think of something, wake up the next day, go to work, come back, get back to it, and all of a sudden just do it the way that I had originally started doing it, or the first gut feeling I had, and it worked out. Or it almost worked out and I changed it a little bit and I flew on the fly and it worked out. And even again to the bigger steps of, man, I didn't think I could lay all my crap out on a sidewalk and have people buy it, but I sold, 2 items that were $150, like right off the bat. And I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like I could not believe that. Right. So, but you wouldn't know, you post things up for sale and sometimes they sit there forever. And then sometimes you post things up for sale and you get 12 people that want them, but you don't know if you won't post them up for sale, all that stuff. I get most of my exposure, not most, but a lot of my exposure now from being active on social media and sending things to pages and people. Hey, can I get a post? Can I get a post? And God, I cannot imagine how that has now become its own little industry where people will charge for an Instagram post. Some people charge 10, 12, 25, $50 for a all-inclusive Instagram post package that has a one post and two stories for 3 hours and 12 hours of a post, and it's on 12 platforms, and you'll have a guaranteed reach of 1 million viewers, right? And you're like, I'm not paying $50 for you to make an Instagram post and copy it to 5 pages. Like,
Right.
no, you know what I mean? Like, no. I've never once done that. And and I'll send, like the pictures of my amazing girlfriend modeling and stuff like that to pages for whatever reason, and you see those pages of those popular Instagram models and how they're all over the place, and it's like I know that most of those pages are $10 to $20 for a post, and I'm like, are they paying that?
Yeah.
Or is that what you're doing to get us to come here to ask to post our stuff so that you're making some money? Like, because man, if that's the case, they're spending a lot of money on that stuff, but I don't think they are. But man, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, and good for that person to figure out a way to capitalize on that. Like, capitalism is good. But man, I'm not paying you to post a picture on Instagram. Like, I'll ask for you a favor. I'll shout it out that you did because I super appreciate it. And I'll ask the people that already follow me to go and support you. But I'm not, no.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel I'm not running a business yet. I'm a hobbyist. Right. So I'm not gonna pay for advertising.
Yeah.
I think is important. But how some of those people are doing that is just insane. I cannot understand.
It's a mystery.
Right. I don't understand. So, but nonetheless, it's still important that I think that if you're an artist and you're trying to gain your social media presence, you got to be real active on that. You have to go out and push and send stuff to quick little Instagram class. You got to use 30 hashtags. You got to tag 20 pages that hopefully will repost it, or at least like it, comment, and help improve your status. Right, share it maybe, and then you got to send it to people. Ask them to post it, share it. You can do that up to like 30 times or whatever before you get banned on Instagram. I think it is. Which, God, isn't that amazing? You have a limit on that, but
Right.
that stuff is important. Like that is the stuff that I do. Because for certain stuff, or if there's like a mechanical page, or they posted something that has like, any reference to something I've made or whatever, I'll send it to a page, or like a motocross page I'll send my dirt bike stuff to, or the guns pages I send all my guns to, or certain guns or whatever. And that's how you gain followers. That's how that works out. You just have to be pretty diligent doing it.
You just gotta.
Just don't be afraid to try, and don't be afraid to put in the effort. It's not easy. You know what I mean? Like even just running a popular social media page, you would say, like, right, I have 20,000 followers,
Yeah.
right? So like that's kind of a lot, I guess you would say. You know what I mean? I gotta post stuff every day, and if I don't post stuff for a few days, I start losing followers, or I post the wrong stuff, I start losing followers. And not that followers are important, but like I don't know, like if that's what you're doing, that's what it is, right? So even again, and then people that follow you get bored if you're not making stuff too, right? And so you gotta make stuff, you gotta try stuff. Those longer projects, it can be tough because, man, during this last horse head build, I have had more and more throwback Thursdays, flashback Fridays, tossback Tuesdays, just because I can put 2 or 3 hours into the horse head right now, and it doesn't look like I did shit. Like, it doesn't look like anything, but I could put 3 hours into it and have cleaned up a bunch of the little openings and holes and gaps that have bugged the crap out of me, or finished the shape off, or whatever it is. um, and now it's like, man, it doesn't look like I did anything, but I put 4 hours into that son of a bitch,
Yep.
and I'm all, and I have certain pieces that will do that. Um, but I'm almost at that point now where it's like, okay, I am almost to the point where I will start adding things that are big improvements, big steps, big, okay, now we're getting done. And so that's cool. That's always an exciting part of the piece. And if you're struggling with a piece, that's something that I've learned, is that if you just keep going with the piece, eventually you're either going to hate it so much that you're going to just throw it away, or you're going to figure it out, get past that hump, and learn that, hey, I like this piece. This is now art. This is now something I'm putting myself into because I was struggling with it for so long. Now I feel attached to it, or something with that, to that effect, right? Like it's part of you. And sometimes it's a bad part of you. Sometimes like the best art comes from like your worst times,
Mhm.
right? Or your worst emotions, sometimes on your worst days. Got a bad day at work, you come home, sometimes you make or create the coolest things. Sometimes that's like, I was having a bad day at work last week or whatever on Thursday, and came home, and I made this guy,
Oh man,
because
that's sick.
he's
Look at that.
right. It's got a camshaft, and uh piston, and I don't even know, that was some tool and some other just stuff.
It'd be a
I was,
prop.
yeah, a little zombie weapon. But man, I was just angry, and it's super cool looking, and it's going to sit over there for a long time until I finish it. But yeah, for some reason I felt like I needed to get some aggression out, right? So that's what I made.
Like
And art.
I was gonna say, it's like how some people do the dishes or start cleaning when they're mad. Creatives, it's best for us to just create. Because even if it's whatever emotion, if it's anger, it's still passion. And that's how we do our best work.
Oh, art is the best therapy. I've had a pretty up and down life as an adult, and um gone through rough times, good times, bad times, all that stuff. And uh once I started doing art, it really gave me an outlet to use as a therapy, or a time to think about what was going on in my life, and deal with it, process it, assess it, move on, whatever it's needed to be. In many a different times, it's been there because it's a very good way for you to um, let your emotions flow in every way plausible. And when you're really creating art, you're not really, you're just like a mind, and your body's just kind of doing that. And sometimes that's what sucks with what I do, and how I do it, because it's like 11 o'clock at night, And all of a sudden at about 11:05, I kick into that artist mode gear of like, my hands are just working. I'm grabbing different parts and I'm placing them, and things are just fitting right. And the next thing I know, it's 1:30 in the fucking morning, and I got to work in a couple hours and go sit at a desk all day and get yelled at by customers. And you're just like, oh, dude, man, but it looks bitchin', and at the same time, in that hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is, once you get to that mode, that's when your art is at its best. And that's when you literally are you're almost so encompassed in what you're making, you're not even thinking about it, you're thinking about something else, and you're just making it. And that's what's so cool about the art, is that it is you, because you're not really creating it. You're off in your head dealing with whatever adult situation you have to deal with, or kid situation, or marital situation, or whatever the heck it is. Yet you're making this thing that is just you in your truest form. And I think that's sometimes that's really neat. I look at some of those things. You say the train was a very rough time of my life, right? Like the forklift, that was another hard little stretch going on. Some of the other little things that you make, you're just like, man, those were cool things that I made when I was going through a good time. And then you make things when life is awesome and you are happy, and you just walk out, and you can almost turn that switch on, and you just start making stuff, and you're just happy, and life is good, right? And you're just relaxed. And that's art can be so many different things to so many different, and creating art can be so many different things to so many different people as well, that it's really cool. And I think that's something that, as an artist, still quotation marks, that I can appreciate in other artists, not quotation marks, that, man, I understand what it takes to create something, whether it be anything, a song, a sculpture, a building, whatever you want to be an artist at. I can appreciate that. That's cool. You know what I mean? That's cool. And I can also, again, appreciate that the backhoe guy, you know, dug this perfect trench, because, man, that's an art. Like, right, like, that's, to that guy, that's an art, right? So you just, art comes in many forms, shapes, sizes, and I think that's something that is important. And definitely for your podcast and what your podcast is about, I think that's um, something that I would like to portray to those people. I don't even know who those people are. I said it weird.
Me neither.
But it right. The people that listen to this, I would like to say that art is so many different things, so many different people. Look at what you do as art, right? People that are OCD, you want to talk about the back to the same left and right. When something is perfect, symmetrical, and this and that, OCD people think it's amazing, right? Or when something's lined up great, like that's art to those people. As a fence guy, as a kid, there was a fence I drove by at 10 years old on my bicycle every day, and it's perfect. And it's two little iron fence panels, and they're just set and then line up exactly the right. And there's a gap, and I drive by on my bike, and I remember seeing it out of the corner of my eye, like, that is just always, the person that made it perfect all the way through that, right? And I still drive by that damn fence as an adult, and I go, God, that thing's perfect. And when I make a fence, I try to strive for that kind of perfection. So in fence terms, that's art, right? Because it's just perfect. But sometimes art isn't perfect, so art can be so many different things. And sometimes art isn't a canvas, and sometimes art is music and dance and motion or lights, or you know art can be anything that it brings joy to somebody else's life, right? That's it.
Bottom line, man, you just said it all right there. So good. I could better myself. Well, thank you so much. And I do have one last short question, okay? Because I know on your social,
Oh, I don't have short questions, but okay, go ahead.
on your socials, you go by PJ Kennedy. So do people call you PJ? Do they call you PJ Kennedy? Like, what do you go by?
So my social medias are actually, you can search me PJ Kennedy. That's my name. Don't wear it out, but you can also search me. It's at PFE Works. On Instagram, it's PFE_works, and on Facebook, it's just PFE space works. I nerded out, and the FE, if I ever design a logo or a symbol, the FE will be the sign for iron on a periodic table. So then it'll be PJ's Iron Works. Because FE on the periodic table is the symbol for iron. And so I thought that would be kind of cool to have a big P and then that symbol and then works. But
That is
you
cool.
know,
Do it.
yeah, I'm kind of a nerd and a geek like that sometimes, and then I have zero follow through. So it full circle.
Yep.
No logo, weird name.
Yep. I love it. Well, thank you so much, man, again. And I'm, to National Beer Day and probably going to go enjoy my beer now. And I loved our conversation. I cannot wait for this to come out because if anyone ever wanted to know anything about what you do or, like they're gonna know. And it's like I've been curious for so long and I feel fulfilled after this podcast getting all my questions answered. I know other people are just gonna love this, man. So thanks again.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. It was really a good time.
Thanks for watching this week. Catch next week's episode of Take Aim Podcast with Brianna Hume, an inspiring artist who decided to take a leap of faith to invest in herself and her dreams and is now making beautiful artwork from her Alaskan cabin. You can find Brianna on Instagram at Brianna Hume Fine Art. Remember to hit like and subscribe for new episodes each week. See you next time.